Hi everybody, I'm London Blue, and I'm proud to present some of my dearest friends tonight, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. The subject matter tonight are cryptids, and I'm really excited to get into this. So, Cindy, would you like to go first, introduce yourself and your group here?
Sure. I'm Cindy. I'm one of the co-founders of APIS, Appalachian Paranormal Research Investigative Society. Oh, Jesus.
Have you been doing this long?
You haven't even been drinking.
Yeah, right?
Yes, I have. I had one.
Yes, she did.
That's seltzer.
Black cherry.
Oh, shut the hell up. And on to the next co-founder.
I'm Scott, better known as JR by most everybody. I am not only a co-founder, but I am also technical advisor. I go through and break down EVPs and various other recordings, video and audio of APIS, which stands for Appalachian's Paranormal Investigative Society.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll get
Too many
on
groups, too many
to my
organizations.
brother.
My name is Phillip. I am a founder of APIS, which stands for Appalachian Paranormal Investigative Society.
Of West Virginia.
Yes, of West Virginia.
Of West Virginia.
Originally, the founders of APIS, at least the three present, we were also a part of an investigative society and community in California, where we originally started the whole paranormal investigation thing. There are two others that are also founders. One of them is asleep downstairs, which is my wife, our resident necromancer, as we like to call her, and the other one who is
He's a little girl and he's hiding
the
right
one who's
now.
hiding in the other room because he
Just saying.
he also is a technical
Expert.
expert.
He's the one that researches all of our equipment and decides what's best for the group.
I
The type
am-
of investigations we do.
I am the instigator out of the group, as well as I do a little bit more research into the cryptid side of things. Wampus beast, chupacabra, Bigfoot, devil dogs, Jersey beast.
Don't forget you're our equipment manager too.
Oh yeah, and I'm the equipment manager.
Yeah.
And I'm the case manager, sensitive.
Yes,
That's
you are.
me.
All right.
I have been drinking.
Great. So this is going to be a fun one, guys. Okay, so let me ask you this: what do you actually do as a team when you go out? What are your missions? What type of investigations do you do, and who for?
Well,
I had
that's
filmed that one day.
all right. That's a question. We have dealt with voluntary investigations. We've done graveyards. We've done asylums, abandoned homes, abandoned schools. Not all
We
of
even
them.
did one insane asylum in California.
Not all
And
of
hospital.
them.
In hospital, yeah.
Technically, we'll just not talk about the no trespassing stuff. But, and then we actually do have times where we have individuals that will reach out to us as a paranormal investigative team and invite us in. And at which time we generally try to get a baseline understanding of what type of activity is going on, so we have a generalized idea of where to start to
Whether it's actually
judge.
something paranormal or whether it can be explained logically. It's just because not everything that you think is paranormal is paranormal. Well, 1% of the stuff is actually.
I'd say more than 1%.
I think it all depends. It all depends on.
I personally would think more than 1% because we've done quite a few investigations and we have gotten a lot of stuff in those investigations.
Yeah, that or we just happen to know the right places to go.
But that's something that I was going to point out is that a lot of people may claim that they have activity in their house,
Right.
but out of all of the millions of people who claim that there's activity in their house, maybe the 1% that,
Right.
and that you all investigate, the majority of that 1% is actually, real
Well,
activity.
because in California, there have been times where we were called in, because they had no idea what was going on, they thought it was paranormal scent, strange odors that they couldn't explain stuff. And
Right.
it was stuff coming in from outside. It
Yeah.
was, we were able to
Or
explain it.
different sounds and stuff in the
Right.
walls turned out to be bad piping
Or animals.
rats, animals,
Right.
right, rodents.
One thing we do like to have present on an investigation is a skeptic. That is one thing APIS has always loved to have is a skeptic, because myself, my wife, Brian, the one who's hiding, my brother and my mother, we have all had experiences. We know the supernatural exists and we know the paranormal exists. And the supernatural and the paranormal are two different things. Me, for instance, I have been scratched. I have had blood drawn on me. I have been thrown into tombstones. I know 100%.
I had the dog fire snapped up.
I know 100% there is the unexplained that exists. A skeptic usually will give us what we need to look beyond what we believe it is and look for alternative aspects. Because while we are aware that they exist, it can sometimes cloud our views as to what might actually be causing it of a legitimate standpoint.
That's true, but that's also one of the main reasons why we try to debunk any
it first.
haunting or paranormal investigation through scientific means first.
Right.
If we can't find a logical scientific reason
For what's
for
happening.
what is going on,
Then we start.
then we need to start looking at the actual paranormal aspect and determine if there is in fact a paranormal occurrence, and if so, what classification or degree of interaction is actually going on.
And what the cause might be.
Right.
What are some of the procedures you'd use to go about that? I mean, like what type of equipment do you use? If you've debunked or you've tried to debunk it and you find that you don't have a lot of reasoning for it, then what's your next step? What type of equipment do you use? What's your process? Or
Oh,
do you have
usually
certain rituals or-
one of the first things that we always try to do before we ever step into an investigation is to gain as much information about the property as we can. If it's a home, if it's a cemetery, anything.
Rare occasions, private property.
Rare occasions.
Yeah, but the majority of the time when we go into private properties.
Then we're invited.
in.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we don't recommend that you violate any law.
Especially in West Virginia, those of you that are natives, you'll know, good way to get shot.
It's factual.
That's true.
Knowing the history of a location that you're going to investigate is paramount. If you're investigating a graveyard that at one point in time may have been a Civil War battlefield, that's good information to know. That you very well could have residual hauntings as well as something even further. I mean, it's all a matter of not just the history, but also what has happened between the earliest recorded record and the most up-to-date time frame.
The large majority of hauntings that I've researched and that I have personally seen seems to be more along the lines of they are residual hauntings. And what a residual haunting is usually something has happened in an area that affected it in such a way that a fragment of the essence or essences of individuals in question made such a mark in that location that it replays it over and over again like a movie. What you are actually seeing, they are not conscious, they are not aware. It is simply a memory that is stuck in time in that location. There are measures you can take to get rid of residual memories and residual hauntings, but 8 times out of 10, there is nothing you can do regarding residual hauntings.
Well, and you said you're the equipment manager for
I'm
the
one
team?
of them, yes.
So what type of equipment do you all use?
It all depends on where we go. Like, for example, we'll have some equipment we use, whether it's indoor or outdoor, whether it's a small area as opposed to a large area. And some stuff isn't. Like, there are some pieces of equipment that just, it's not feasible to use in an area that's so huge and has no walls, like a laser grid, for example. You know, I mean, you could, but it's not going to be as effective as
Unless
if
you
you're.
have a legitimate
Right, well, where it can break the.
area that
Right.
you know is a hot spot for paranormal activity.
Because what you're doing is with the laser grid, you're setting up multiple mini lights, and as the entity or the haunt, whatever, breaks it, you can actually see the break in the light. Well, if you're outside,
You also can't guarantee that because you have to get to a certain distance to view it most of the times.
You never know if, that's a small raccoon, if that's an opossum or a bat or anything that might be tripping those lights.
Okay.
Normally, that equipment is reserved for in-house areas, crypts, tombs, or personal housing, rooms,
Right.
things of that nature.
EVPs are another one to where it depends upon the ambient noises in your surrounding. If you have a really loud area that you're attempting to do an investigation at, an EVP can sometimes be recorded, but the audio tech like myself, I'm gonna have a hellacious time cleaning up all of that background noise and actually trying to locate the EVPs. So sometimes you just have to accept the fact that you might not get an EVP, or you try to find a location within the investigative perimeter that's quiet enough to actually conduct an EVP session.
Now, for some of you who may not be overly
Savvy with what EVP is, it stands for electronic voice phenomenon. And what the idea behind that is you are able to record a voice or sounds that are operating below what the human ear can pick up. It could be simple things as a growl, or even sometimes a word, or in some rare
Footsteps.
instances, full sentences.
in California, we got that damn train.
Yes.
We went on a train where we were,
We have had it
Yeah.
along.
and we were in a
Oh.
cemetery.
We have had
And
every
their
bit.
train track was literally about 4 miles from where we were.
And the train we picked up on the EVP was a steam train.
Was a steam train.
We have had EVPs of all types
We had.
during the time that we have been investigators. To add into what my brother was saying about it depends entirely on where we go, as well as what she said. For instance, an EVP, as they stated, is more useful for quiet locations, areas that you can assure that what you are getting is what you are getting. You don't have to worry about ambient car noises passing by, or ghost trains, or things of that nature.
Or children playing in the playground beside
Right.
the cemetery.
Right, because that happened to us that one time.
It did.
you
Back
went
when
out
I was
for us.
back when I was still investigating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I went with the
for
Mormon
instance.
cemetery investigation, and some kids came in. They were playing on the playground beside the cemetery, but then eventually they worked their way up into the cemetery where we were investigating with glow necklaces and things. They were going to play Spotlight. So yeah, needless to say, that ended our investigation for the night.
The reason that ended
Contaminated it.
Yeah.
exactly
Just a little bit.
That's why
It was no longer a controlled environment.
correct. As I was saying, the one of the scenarios that we had to investigate was, I mentioned it before in very brief, was an insane asylum. It was active. There were active patients there. The owners had asked us to come in and to investigate it. Apparently, the patients had been reporting people being physically harmed.
Actually, I gotta correct my brother, it was the management team.
Yeah,
With the
management
owner's
team.
approval.
Yes. They were being physically harmed, physically interacted with, which states a stage 5 phenomenon. anything that can physically interact, be it a scratch, a touch, a shove, anything like that, that is a stage 5.
Throw something off of your
Yes.
walls, open your drawers, open your doors,
Yes.
slam your doors closed, knock stuff off of your shelves.
Stage 5 indicates anything that can physically interact with anything in the waking world. We were not able to use EVPs. And you being an ex-investigator, you know EVPs are the bread and butter of almost every investigation. We were not able to use that because it was still an in-use site while we were investigating. So we could not account for any of the noise that we heard. We still used them because we had no choice, but needless to say, that investigation, we didn't get anything concrete.
Yes, we did.
We did.
We did this. You can feel the footsteps.
I'm not talking about the powder.
prints, yes.
They had one room that the patient was gone. He was off on a home visit. And he was one of the lower levels. He wasn't the really crazy one. But he was on a home visit and they kept his room locked. Yet they were reported that they were hearing sounds coming from inside his room when there was nobody in there. So they unlocked it for us, and what we did was we took baby powder and we put baby powder, with their permission, of course, all over all over his bed, all over his floor and stuff.
Carpet.
The carpet. We went out, locked the room, made sure that the staff
We had the
locked
key.
it. We had the key to the room. Okay, we had one member from their management team that was with us for security purposes. And we went on, we continued investigating that wing. About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, we went back, and when we opened up the door and went in, you could actually see footprints up over the bed and across the carpet and towards
into the
into the
closet.
closet.
Human
Oh,
footprints?
Humans.
Humans.
Yes. At first, to add to what we stated before, we tried to look for things that will rule it out. We try to find logical explanations for these supposed hauntings. The site in question, I won't name any names. It was not exactly the cleanest area. There were mouse droppings. It was not exactly up to par. We originally believed that it could have been a rat or rats
mice,
that they were hearing in the walls, scurrying across the floor. So we wanted to test that by doing
Controlled tests.
a controlled test, correct. And in light of doing that, we discovered footprints in a locked room that there was nobody that had access to that room aside from us. So,
Okay, well, you mentioned that you also do outdoor investigations, obviously cemeteries and so forth. Have you ran across any type of cryptids?
Here
Or
in
any
California.
signs?
Or
Either
just in
or.
general?
In general, either or. Or any signs of cryptids?
Our missing member had an experience, but he's not here to talk about it.
We're not going to
so,
talk
yeah.
about that.
no, I don't think he's coming.
No, he's not.
So, which do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about our trip on Vampire Hill? Do you want to talk about our potential encounter with Mothman? Or do you want to talk about now what I'm about to say, I know there are a lot of unbelievers out there. The alien encounter we had.
Well, but before you pick a story to tell us, let me ask you this. Okay, you mentioned there are non-believers out there.
Okay.
Give us some ideas of what may make a convincing argument that cryptids are real.
That cryptids are real?
What would be like a convincing argument?
We
Like
discover new species on this planet all the time.
when we had talked about the other night, we'd all talked
We
about
talked about the movie The Descent.
prehistoric and
Right, and like the Cedar Camp, and the movie The Descent, blind fish, in the bottom of caverns that.
The fact
just,
is
there's all kinds of.
it's a known
things.
fact that animals will evolve or devolve depending upon what is needed in their environment. We actually touched on this.
Tough question.
Let's say just on the understanding of, there being creatures out in the woods that nobody has been able to actually get physical proof. I posed the question, what if there was physical proof and nobody was willing to accept that that was actual physical proof? They just chose to disregard it. That's a possibility.
That happens.
To add to that, my addition to that would be certain cryptids that have been sighted for over 200 years with detailed accounts as well as olden photographs dating all the way up to recent that all resemble the same thing.
Why don't we see more of those though? You know what I'm saying?
I believe
Because they're hard to.
Because it seems like the one Bigfoot picture
Well,
was like shot the old black and white one was shot 45 or something like that.
That one was proved to be a hoax.
that one was proved to be a hoax.
But that's the only one you ever see. I mean, why aren't we seeing
Well-
more of this type of evidence?
Who's to say that the evidence didn't already come out and so many people disproved it, or not disproved it, but disbelieved it, that it just disappeared off the internet?
A lot
Keep
of
in
people
mind,
too,
80%, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there as well as anyone here, I believe 80% of the world's forests have actually been discovered. I know 85% of the world's oceans have not been discovered.
there's places here in West Virginia that
Yes.
haven't
Yeah.
been explored.
There
Yeah.
is so
There
much
is
of
still-
the world
there
that has
is-
not been discovered.
People need to realize, on a geographical standpoint, there are large areas of forest area that man just doesn't get to. So it's very feasible that these cryptids come out far enough to hunt food, have an encounter with hunters in the woods, and then they disappear back into their uncharted territories.
And most hunters, I think when they're out hunting deer, they're not taking cameras along with them.
That's true.
Now, usually there may be trail cams and things like that set up, but
Yeah, but those have, normally people don't put the trail cams up unless they're specifically looking for, a deer trail or whatever. If,
And usually they don't do that unless it's on their own
unless
property.
it's on
And
their own property,
something
exactly.
a cryptid may not be traipsing in on
Right.
somebody's actual farm. Like
What I
they're
will-
doing.
But back to
Go ahead.
what I was saying originally about cryptids. Cryptids could be nothing more than an evolved primate. They know that hunters.
Not all cryptids, but-
Not all, but some.
You're talking about Sasquatch.
Well, yeah, look at it this way. So, as humans throughout ages have progressed into the woods hunting and killing animals, we are predatorial. So, therefore, these various animals may have evolved in their environment because we are predatorial. So, therefore, to defend against us,
They
they
have-
became Sasquatch, whatever, you know what I mean? They've become faster, they've become stronger, they've become more resilient, they've become whatever they needed to attempt to survive
Right.
with us being the apex predator on the
And
planet.
that goes back, Cindy, to the fish you were talking about. I was very intrigued about that. You were talking about that the other night. Can you tell me a little bit more about the blind fish, and how they? Didn't you say something about they were like they could glow, or they looked white, or?
No, in certain caverns, like in Howe's caverns, Carlsbad caverns, they're so far down below that no light gets to them. And
They have no
in
need for
fact, they
eyes.
have no, so animals over the evolution they have no eyes, and they're white, they have no color.
It's very similar to the trapdoor spider. Trapdoor
Right.
spider evolved to the point that it was able to. You've heard of the trapdoor spider?
Actually, I haven't.
You haven't heard of the
I
trapdoor?
haven't, and maybe some
So-
of our viewers haven't.
So
explain
with the
that.
trapdoors, there are many different types of spiders. I am an arachnophobe, so I study them so I can stay away from them. There are many different types of spiders, and they all hunt different ways. You have the Goliath that does not make webs, or at least not to my knowledge, but for the most part, it wanders along the jungle forest floor as well as branches, and it's about that wide.
Wow.
It is a Goliath bird eater. That is its Goliath bird eating strand, something like that. But it is a
Okay,
Goliath.
now if I would run across something like that, guys, I'm sorry. I would be hollering, "That's a cryptid! Get that away from me!"
Its size made it so it did not need a web to imprison its prey. It was strong enough, it was fast enough to catch birds before they were able to fly away. It did not need
That's
it
an
did not
evolved
need
spider.
a web. Correct.
That's
The
insane.
trapdoor spider evolved to the point that it is able to make a web in such a way that is almost you don't notice it if you don't know what you're looking for.
So it's camouflaged.
Correct. And as you walk and you trigger it, it is just loose enough that you can edge closer to the middle where the trapdoor opens and the spider grabs it and pulls it in. It stays in one location. It doesn't work the web like a regular household spider would. Fly gets caught in a web and it runs over to it. The trapdoor doesn't do that.
Okay, so that really kind of goes back to what you were saying, that our undiscovered woods or
And again-
the woods that are not as trampled.
Correct you if you're wrong.
Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not by any means an expert on spiders. I just have a deep-seated fear and hatred of them. So if I am wrong,
But it does go back to support what you guys were saying, that, you know, animals, creatures evolve
Based
into
on
what
their
they need for
environment.
survival.
for instance,
their
We
environment.
had talked
And
about
they
this.
stay reclusive to their
Yes.
home.
Well, we had talked about this previously, that there are some experts out there that believe apes, primates, are coming into their stone age. They are utilizing stones as
They're
tools.
making tools.
Right, they're able to fish with spears, like they're just,
They take the bark off of small branches and then use them to poke into termite to get the sap attracts the termites and sticks the termites, and then they just eat it like a.
And I'm learning that they're doing this, revolving on, to be able to do this on their own. This is
Yes.
not something that they're
No,
being
it's on their
taught.
own.
now, another thing that I will explain that is a perfect example of evolution. Have you ever heard of the anglerfish?
Angler.
Have you heard of the
I have.
Yes. They are so far beneath the ocean, they live submerged in total darkness. There is no natural light. For those of you that don't know what an anglerfish is, it is a large, very, very sharp-mouthed fish with very serrated teeth.
I think anybody that's seen
has-
Finding Nemo should
Yes.
know what that fish is.
Yes, the fish that has the bulb hanging off that lights up, that draws you in, it evolved in such a dark place to attract food.
That's what
Evolution?
is for.
It exists. You just have to look at the animals that exists to see evolution.
Okay, so survival of the fittest. All right, so there you go. There's a little bit
Exactly.
of explanation as to why cryptids very well could exist. So
Well,
back to your stories.
Another reason cryptids could exist is because that goes back to what's saying, there's a lot of areas that have never been discovered. Okay, like for example, in the 1930s or the 1940s, I don't remember the decade exactly, but they found a fish in the ocean that they thought had been extinct for like millions of years.
The colossal squid is one.
I mean, just look,
Yeah,
recent, the
colossal
colossal
squid is
squid.
But the colossal squid, they've proven that it still existed. It just dwelled at such depths.
That we haven't
Never
seen,
saw it.
right.
But
They
what I'm
actually
saying is-
believe the kraken is the colossal squid. The colossal squid can grow to
But what I'm saying,
50 to 80 feet long.
But what I'm saying is, hundreds of years ago, people weren't used to seeing that, and if they saw it, guess what? It's a cryptid.
Yes.
Right.
In fact, that's actually, speaking of cryptids, that's actually where I believe the kraken cryptid, which, for those of you that don't know, the kraken is a massive cephalopod that was supposedly so large it could wrap around, crack, and sink ships. It was also related to Greek mythology, as well as some of the other mythology, but primarily Greek.
It was a sailor's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a sailor's worst nightmare.
Them and the sirens, but that's something else.
Yeah.
That's
They
what
actually,
Yes.
there's no such thing as full, hard, 100% evidence of this thing being what is being confused as a cryptid. But in the matter of the Kraken was believed to be about 100 to 120 feet long from head to tip of tentacle. And there was no squid or octopus that was found to be that long until they found the colossal squid, which could grow to be 80 feet long. So by process of elimination, they believe that this is what the Kraken was. And they don't necessarily believe that a colossal squid suddenly started destroying giant ships, but the large majority of the people that passed that story on were sailors.
Right. And to go further into cryptids as far as not being able to locate them and stuff with all the advanced technology we have today. 2008, I believe it was, in a North Vietnamese province, or I don't know if it was a North Vietnamese, just a Vietnamese province, they began surveying a cave that was opened. They believe the cave formed between 2 to 3 million years, predominantly of limestone. This particular cave has its own weather system, it has its own ecosystem, including a free-flowing river that runs through it. It's massive, miles long. Who's to say there aren't more caves like this in the world that we just haven't discovered?
That'd be a perfect place for a cryptid to hide.
Exactly.
Or to develop. And then when an earthquake opens it up, suddenly we have new sightings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, to our story. Which one do I want to start with?
Oh,
I mean, I guess we can start with Vampire Hill.
Vampire Hill.
Only thing is we know there was something there.
Well, hang on. So I feel like we have to explain exactly what Vampire Hill is.
Let him explain that.
Vampire Hill, I know what a lot of you were thinking. Oh, you know, this is some shit from Hollywood. No, Vampire Hill, we're not talking about the Hollywood or Dracula, or anything like that. The time that sucks blood. But we're talking about are psychic vampires. Do you know what a psychic vampire is?
I don't.
So, what a psychic vampire is an individual that may or may not even know of their capabilities. Have you ever been around someone just so negative? Just someone who, after you've left, you just feel so exhausted, so tired, and you don't know why? That is what a psychic vampire is. Not much is really known about them. We don't know if it is, I don't want to call it, but like a process of evolution, or if it's just someone with a psychic ability that hasn't been trained in it. There, not much is really known about psychic
Or
vampires.
they do,
Or they do know. That is another thing. Or they do know, and
and it's a deliberate.
and it's a deliberate thing. The reason why we call it Vampire Hill is because when me and my brother, and at the time his girlfriend, went walking up the road, everything was fine until we turned up and got about halfway. We then started to feel just physically drained, like mentally drained, which is how you feel after you have left the presence of a psychic vampire. And it continued all the trip to the point that we had to turn back and return
Yes.
off of the hill. And that's why we donned it Vampire Hill.
And for the most part, we stayed off of that.
Yeah, we never went back after this experience.
What state was this in?
Here.
Here, West Virginia.
Yep.
But we will say this, everybody that we met up there were
fine.
good people. That's another thing. You could be a psychic vampire and not know. And it's just,
So there very well could be one living up there.
there could be
There
one
could
living
be
up
one.
there that just doesn't know what they're capable of doing.
Or-
doesn't know.
Or they're fully capable of knowing, we just didn't encounter them. There are more people that live up there than who we actually encountered. So if they're doing it on that large of a scale to where they can impact us just from hitting the street, I don't think I want to meet them.
I don't either. So go ahead and you tell the story.
So we were up on the hill.
You tell the story.
I remember hearing the noises in the bushes. That's what first struck my attention.
Do you not remember it fully?
Not entirely. I just remember pulling my gun because they were coming through the damn bushes.
Okay, so I'll try to paint a picture of Vampire Hill. It comes up from Sugar Creek Road. I'm not gonna
Sugar Creek Drive.
Sugar Creek Drive. I'm not gonna express and tell exactly what road it is because I don't want to put anybody on blast. Just know that it is located off of Sugar Creek Drive in Charleston, West Virginia. And it comes up and it curves and then it curves again. Those of you who know the location should know exactly where I'm talking about just by stating that. But it comes up and then it levels out and there are houses all off to your left, none on the right. It is an open, you just see trees out to your right. And there is
Well, it also,
it kind of slants down into the woods.
yeah.
We were walking down the main path and we never got to the very end. We got maybe halfway when we started to hear movement off in the woods to our right. And where we were located, it kind of leveled down a little bit and the road met with the woods.
Okay,
Just
now,
a little bit.
Now to point out, Sugar Creek Drive is in a holler that is pretty much surrounded by woods, so even being out on the regular road, don't walk in the woods without a gun. Continue.
Make
It
sure you
can-
have proper permits though.
Correct. It connected to the degree that if me or my brother wanted to, we could have actually gotten down off the road into the woods and then gotten back up onto the road. We started to hear noise that just sounded like wildlife, base wildlife. You know, it could have been deer. It was like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. Could have been deer. Could have been raccoons. At that time frame, I think we had a bear that was sighted around Sugar Creek.
There was bears.
Could have been the bear, could have been coyotes, any number of shit. Whatever it was, there were multiple, but it started to approach through the brush and the trees. We never actually saw it. My brother then pulled his gun and cocked it. Now, this is a question I pose to everybody who has ever been out in the woods and they know anything about animals and the way animals react. A noise might startle them and they'll run off. When I tell you these animals took off and they zigzagged to avoid being hit, they zigzagged.
We could actually watch the high brush movement.
So
as they
we
fled.
could not actually get a line of shot on them in the woods.
I thought most
Interesting.
animals, if they're startled, they just run in a straight.
That's what we were expecting, or even running and then cut off in a different direction. They were zigzagging as if you were trying to line up a shot. You couldn't do it. That showed intelligence. More intelligence than a regular run-of-the-mill
Than I had
animal would
expected.
have.
Right.
And it wasn't just one. I think it was like 5 or 6 different trails.
Yes. They would have, if whatever it was, they would have actually came up and encompassed us. That's how they were spread out.
There was literally like, we're here, this is the woods. I mean, they were literally coming from all directions, closing
They had
in on us.
surrounded.
After that, we went down off Vampire Hill and we never went back. But aside from that, we never had a single issue regarding that on that road. We have seen vehicles turn and drive into a mountainside.
Yeah, that
Disappear.
happened.
That's happened.
Yeah, that was odd.
There are a lot of stories.
Later actually found out that there is actually a road. Like we found the remnants of a road where
That's
that
been
car
overgrown.
disappeared.
But that car never drove through there.
Yeah.
But we saw the car turn and disappear.
Yeah,
as
we
if
were
it went
walking
down that
because
road.
we used to walk up and down Sugar Creek as part of our daily exercise routine. And yeah, it full out turned and disappeared. Into the
And I know
mountainside.
there'll be some of you out there that will believe that we're just saying things for views or whatever else or lying
Believe
to
what you
get
want.
attention. All I can say is you didn't experience it.
I don't know if I would want to experience some of this stuff.
I don't want to. I don't want to experience that again.
That sounds really weird.
I don't know that that's as. I don't know that the turning into the hillside and all that didn't bother me as much as the large sections of trees getting rolled down the
Yes.
hill.
Do you want to tell that story?
Sure, might as well. We're on the top. We're on the roll.
Go
already.
ahead. Now, this is the topic where I mentioned to him, should we tell the story about Mothman? Now, when I say that, I'm not by any means stating we saw Mothman or we are assuming it was Mothman. All I know is something was there that was able to destroy sections of trees and large branches.
But it wasn't on the ground.
But it wasn't on the ground, it was up in the trees, and it was following us from probably about a mile.
It followed us for a good,
Mile.
I'd say half to 3/4 of a mile.
Did it follow you from tree to tree or
Yes.
down the ground?
No, it was in the
Tree.
tree the whole time.
Tree
It
to
never
tree.
once touched the ground.
So what was it actually doing?
So, go ahead.
So we have, alright, so our particular cabin on Sugar Creek, it's about a little over a mile walk to where we would normally turn around and come back. That's why I said it was only about half to
Might have been,
3/4.
yeah, because we did stop early.
We stopped early. We didn't go all the way
Yeah.
to the end of the holler. Anyway, we went to the turning point that's a mile, literally 1 mile from our cabin to this location, because we would do 2-mile round trip every day as part of our exercise routine. So we walked up there fine, nothing, not an issue, no encounter, no, other than your normal sounds of what a forest would make, because we do live in the woods. And everything was fine. And I'd say probably about, 16th to 1/4 of a mile. It was fine on our way back. Me and my brother were just talking. It was just us, right?
Yeah, it was just us.
I thought it was. She
The
wasn't
other
there.
one, she went back.
Right. Well, as we started making our way, my brother pointed out that he was like, hey, I think there's something in this tree line over here following us to the left-hand side of us.
To the right, because it was across that little.
Well, looking from the way I'm looking, it was on our left if we were walking back.
So the direction that it was at was across the road, off in the trees.
Now, mind you, we live in, the Sugar Creek's in a holler, so there's actually homes all on the left and right-hand side. And then the woods are off in the back behind all the homes.
The reason I said that was because as I was looking around again, it's late at night, and we did have some unsavory types. So while I wasn't exactly looking for anything in the trees, I did catch sight of something that looked to be kind of crouched down up in the treetops across the what's the word for it? Canal? No. Creek? Creek, yeah. Across the creek. And it was just kind of staring. It stood out more than it would if it was just a part of the tree trunk.
Now, normally I wouldn't have thought nothing of it because deer stands are in trees sometimes.
Right.
Except it had red eyes.
And it kept moving with
Yes.
us.
So you did see red
Yeah,
eyes.
saw red eyes.
Yeah,
That is the
100%
only
saw
thing.
red eyes. That's why he referenced it to Mothman.
Only because I have heard and I have researched that Mothman possesses multiple eyes, either red, yellow, but it's primarily been of a red variety.
So what was its shape? I mean, was it shaped
It
like
was
a large
crouched down.
owl?
It-
Or?
It was crouched. We never actually
Never
got
actually-
a full
It was
view.
dark. It was like midnight,
Yeah.
and it
I
was
can tell you
outside
that-
of the streetlights. I mean, it was
literally up
I
in the
only
woods.
noticed it because darkness, red orbs. But they were.
About how big would you say it was? Do you have any way you could judge?
It was in the darkness. I mean, once it started moving, and
We would have never thought nothing of it except for the fact that it started moving
Yeah.
tree to tree as we were moving. I mean, literally to where it literally moved to a tree and knocked a massive tree trunk that was laying against that tree down the fucking hill into somebody's house.
Yeah.
It had to have had enough weight to affect the.
Yeah, never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
So did
Never
you
seen-
actually see it moving tree to tree?
Yeah, we
or just
actually
hear it?
saw it moving from
So
tree
did
to
you
tree.
see any type of wings or arms?
No, it
or
just
legs?
like just jumped.
Like teleported?
Or
I mean, it could have.
maybe
I don't know.
Because I've actually heard some things that supposedly Mothman can teleport from one.
I
don't know. I don't
I just know that every time we looked to the trees as we were continuing to move, it was in sight.
and it was following us, watching us. Never met eye contact with it, but I'm not saying, by no means am I saying it was Mothman, the legendary Mothman of West Virginia. All I'm saying is something was there and something followed us home that night, like you said, maybe a quarter of a mile, and it was breaking trees under its weight. I don't know what it was.
Large
Yeah,
branches.
sorry, branches. I don't know what it was, just that it followed us. And I don't know about you, but I felt really, really uneasy the entire way back. Like I was in danger if I didn't get off.
Right. Well, okay, so we've talked about ghosts, we've talked about how cryptids could maybe come into existence or why we would believe in cryptids. Mothman, or I know you're saying that you're not claiming this was Mothman, but what you were describing sounds similar to it, which is one of the most famous
Yeah.
West Virginia cryptids.
Right.
And you had mentioned that maybe he was teleporting from tree to tree since there was no actual movements of arms or limbs or
Right.
wings or
But I mean,
which
the thing is, it was so dark, it could have been.
could have been
Yeah,
right,
that's
right,
the problem.
Right.
It was
right. But just saying, going with that theory that it could have been teleporting. That kind of leads us back on more into giving me the thoughts of our Braxton County monster that appeared out of like lightning bolts out of the sky, and
Yeah.
which
a lot of people
kind of
believe
believes
it's
us
an alien.
right where it kind of makes us believe
What,
okay, so
black ones?
cryptids could be aliens as well.
The Braxton Woods.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So some cryptids may not be animals here on Earth that has
Right.
evolved, but is there a possibility that they could be alien?
Well, see, the thing is, cryptid doesn't necessarily mean alien or animal. It's just
Unidentified creature.
Right. So
Just similar to UFO, which is actually unidentified flying object. For instance, if the Air Force is developing a new airplane and it is not something you have seen before, you are looking at a UFO. Because it is
If it's not
something you
identifiable
identify.
to air traffic control, it's
Correct.
not on their stuff. That is an unidentified flying object.
When you hear UFO, it does not mean alien necessarily.
Extraterrestrial.
Yes, does not mean extraterrestrial
Right.
necessarily. And cryptid, that's all a cryptid is just something that
Something
hasn't been identified. It could be anything.
Now, as far as aliens go,
let's get into it.
dude, I don't know what the fuck that was.
I don't know.
I don't know what that was.
I don't know.
I don't fucking know.
I know that we determined we were gonna go check it out. And I have no recollection that we ever did.
We lost 3 hours of time in California.
Oh, really?
We were going to
We were going to.
a campsite on the river to go fishing. I had never been fishing.
Yep.
It was going to be a special thing. His family, they picked me up.
It was maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
25 minutes from the house to the fishing site where we were going.
We were driving and he decided to cut through a cornfield that was used often by people. It wasn't
Actively in
No,
I mean, technically, we weren't even in the cornfield. It was a road.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it cut through a section of the cornfield.
Right. And it was an orchard.
It was-
And there was an orchard on the right side and an orchard on the left side. The problem is
Describe to people who may not, for some reason, know what an orchard is.
an orchard is just a really, It depends on the acreage, but it's a flat area of produce growth. It might be trees, it might be,
Apples or apple trees.
it could be apple trees, it could be almonds, it could be,
Cherry trees.
I mean, it's basically just an area where something is grown. It's an orchard.
As we stated before, we are originally from California, and that was primarily in where we lived. We lived in the agricultural belt.
Figs, almonds,
Yeah.
all kinds of
We
stuff.
had miles upon miles upon miles of orchards.
Yeah.
And we were driving through a section of orchards that was...
Very, very large. It
Yes.
was a large orchard.
And there were no lights. There were no lights. We were far from any towns. I don't even think signal worked. Like where we were going.
I don't think we had signal either.
And all of a sudden, there was just, and I hate using that terminology all of a sudden, but all of a sudden, darkness.
It was literally a blue light.
Pure blackness. And then it was just this luminescent blue light that just
It lit up the entire orchard.
everything.
Like the entire
As far
orchard
as
was
we
lit up.
could see.
Wow.
It was so bright.
It was. It literally lit up the whole orchard. It was like somebody had taken a 360-degree light tower light and dropped it in the middle of this orchard and then supercharged it by like 1,000. It
remember.
literally lit
It
up
was-
the whole orchard like it was daylight.
it was like 10, 15, 10, 20, because we were going to arrive about 25 minutes after I got picked up at 10 o'clock. And it was about 10:50. We were still like maybe 5 to 10 minutes out. So I want to say we were like 10:20 when
Right.
that happened. And it was lit up. Everywhere was lit up, but there was a section that was brighter than the rest.
In the middle of the
Yes,
orchard.
in the middle. We didn't have to go that direction.
Not at all.
The direction we were going would have actually led us out of it. We were on the outskirts of it. We decided
We wanted to go see what it
to
was.
see what it was. We didn't know
Because
if
you
it
know,
was,
white people shit.
We
We just
didn't
don't
know.
look at random stuff.
we didn't know if it was like some kind of military exercise, like some kind of, my brother is ex-military, so is my mother. We didn't know if it was some kind of new type of military exercise or whatever. We drove that way. We had myself, him, and my nephew at the time in the car. And then nothing happened. The light just disappeared. We were kind of let down because we couldn't figure out exactly what happened. We arrived at the campsite about 10 minutes later. Everybody's worried. Everybody's pissed off and said that we were 3 hours late. It was 1 a.m., 1:30 when we checked the clock.
Oh, wow.
We lost 3 hours and we don't know where they went. We don't know what happened. Like
So did you drive in through the light and then it disappeared? Or?
What I remember is we were driving towards the light. It was getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And the light just disappeared.
See, I don't remember that at all. I don't remember
Were you
ever.
not driving?
Yeah, I don't ever remember turning into the orchard to go toward the light. I remember discussing it. I remember us talking about going there. I have no recollection.
I remember driving.
Do you remember
towards
seeing
it.
the light?
Yeah, 100%. I remember the light. I remember all of
You
that.
just don't remember driving.
I do
into it.
not remember turning off of that road and going into the orchard.
I remember it getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and then it just gone. Like, I mean, the brightest, most beautiful blue light you've ever seen in your life, then gone in an instant.
Yeah, I know for a fact that we lost all that time because I ended up in a huge fight with my ex-wife over it. But
No, this actually looks like a good stopping place for us. I think we'll take a break at this point, and maybe we'll pick up on a second podcast another
sounds
time.
good. Maybe we'll get the other little bitch to actually come in.
Maybe.
Because you guys have so many cool stories, and there's so much other things.
We
so
have a
many
lot
other
of years
things.
of experience doing this.
So many other things I want to talk to you all about. So definitely, I appreciate each of you being here with me tonight. And yes, maybe next time we can get the other co-founder
Yes.
in here on board. Absolutely.
Yep.
And thank all of you guys for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Be sure and tune in for the next one.
See you next time.
Drive safe. Have a
Have
good
a
life.
good one.
Bye.